All right, mainstream media finally covers the rise in violent crimes against the Asian elderly, and just about every story on social media and on mainstream media gets it wrong. How you doing, folks? Welcome to the Millennial Boomer Podcast. It's your host, Jonathan. Let's get it. All right, guys, before I begin, look, I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you all for listening. Listen, whichever platform you're on, please, subscribe to it, follow, like, comment, whatever you can do. It means a lot. So yeah, any feedback you want to give me, please shoot me an email, send me a DM, whatever you want to do. Go ahead. I listen and I respond to almost everything. All right, guys, a couple of things before I get into the meat of the content today. Look, indoor dining finally opened, right? So this is a little bit of local news. Indoor dining in New York City finally opened at 25% 2 days ago. The 10 p.m. curfew was also moved to 11 p.m. So this is pretty much good news for the restaurant, bar, really the bar industry, right? Moving that 1 hour curfew. People say, oh, that's nothing, but no. When you move from 10 p.m. to 11, that has big implications. So I think, of course, me being in that industry, I agree with the move. I think it's a good thing that Cuomo's doing. So guys, if you're in New York City, guys, visit your favorite restaurants, visit your favorite bars, and give them some business because they're all hurting. Okay, they're all hurting. And look, if you want to come through where I work at Panja in K-Town in Mehen. So come through. Would love to see you guys if you can. And just on this note, okay, so on this note about indoor dining, all right, let me just take a quick jab at these people that are constantly yelling and screaming and shouting about shutting things down. All right? Oh, there's a new variant out there. You can't do indoor dining. You have to shut it down. You have to shut it down. Listen. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to people who say they want to shut things down and say, all right, they want to do this because they're genuinely concerned, right? They're genuinely concerned. If you want to shout, complain, and bitch about indoor dining, about dining at all, okay? If you want to do that, look, you gotta tell, or you gotta give some other idea of how restaurants and restaurant workers are going to survive. Okay, so let's say, yeah, everything's shut down. Okay, so how is the restaurant industry, how is the hospitality industry, how is it supposed to survive? Nobody's giving any other alternatives, right? Everybody just saying just shut it down, just shut it down. All these people, these COVID alarmists, right? Just shut it down. What are you gonna do about the people that work in these industries? What about them? Okay, the point is, you can't call for more restrictions. Okay, you can't call for more shutdowns and lockdowns or whatever without suggesting an alternative income method. Okay, staying at home for many people doesn't work. Let me say that again. Staying at home for many people, including myself, it doesn't work. It doesn't bring in the income. Common sense, folks. All right, it's simple facts, common sense, but it escapes a lot of people. I don't know why. Okay, I don't know why that's so hard to grasp. Okay, I mean it's to me it's pretty simple. You have to go out, make a living, and your job requires you to be physically present at whatever place you're working at, and you want to shut that thing down because you're scared of COVID. Okay, I get it. I get where you're coming from. But you can't just call for shutdowns and lockdowns again without providing some sort of alternate solution. So everyone bitching and moaning and complaining about, oh, Cuomo's going to reopen indoor dining. Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up or give us some sort of other alternative solution. Are you going to pay for everyone's salaries? Are you going to pay for everybody's incomes that's being lost? I don't think so. Okay, I don't think so. So the people that are calling for these shutdowns and harsher restrictions are the what I call the very comfy, cushiony liberal, left-leaning, elite New Yorkers. Okay? The elites, the elite left, right? They want to just, they can say these things because it doesn't affect them, right? Whether they stay at home or not, the bread's still coming. Well, reality check for the rest of us, it's not. Okay, so unless, again, you come up with some other solution, please shut the fuck up. Okay, please shut the fuck up. All right, let's get to it, guys. Man, let's get to it. All right, so look, I know the past episode I spoke a lot about the what's it called? What's going on with the attacks on Asians, the media, liberal Asians and their response to criticism from normal Asian Americans. I spoke a lot about that. And this week, as I've been sort of soaking it all in a little bit more, I think I wanted to just sort of expand a little bit more. So think of this episode as a part 2, okay, as a part 2 of the last episode. And for those of you guys that that don't like this kind of talk and don't like hearing about Asian American violence, right? Violence against Asian Americans, the media's response, the different camps, the different train of thoughts within the Asian American community. If you think it's been overplayed and you've heard enough about it, sorry to those listeners, okay? But there has been some development, right, since last week, and I think I need to kind of cover it a little bit more. And I really want to cover the idea of this anti-Blackness and white supremacy. Okay, these are buzzwords that keep coming up, right? Anti-Blackness and white supremacy. So I want to really dig into that later today. Sorry for the pause, guys. I was drinking coffee. All right, so what's been going on? So what's happening? So if you've noticed, right, the past week we've been Asian Americans have been calling for more more mainstream media coverage, right? The mainstream media doesn't cover what's happening with Asian Americans. Mainstream media doesn't care what's going on. The United States, America does not care what's going on with Asian Americans. We've seen the Instagram posts, we've seen the hashtags, we get it, right? we're on the same boat, right? I agree with that. They don't care. Funny thing happened this week where CNN, ABC, MSN, New York Times, all the mainstream media outlets, CBS, Washington Post, they all decided, hey, we're gonna cover this story. Okay, we're gonna cover this story on Asian American elders being assaulted, robbed, and murdered. Okay, and so I thought to myself, as I was reading these articles that started coming out maybe about 4 or 5 days ago, well, this is strange, right? This is strange. Look at mainstream media finally picking up these stories, right? Look at the mainstream media outlets finally giving a damn, finally caring, right? After Asians hollering, they're finally caring. They're finally listening to us, guys. We're getting some traction, guys. It was a little bit delayed, but I try to think positively, right? Well, at least they're doing it. At least mainstream media is covering our stories. Okay? It's a good thing, right? Mainstream media coverage, it's what we've been asking for. Can't hurt. Can't hurt, right? Well, let's actually read some of the articles. All right, so I took a couple of excerpts, right, from a couple of different articles. I'll start with CNN. Okay, how pandemic rhetoric sparked anti-Asian bias. Still, they have a heightened existing concerns around the rising anti-Asian bigotry, which has become more prominent since the world first learned of a new illness in Wuhan, China. It's absolutely tragic and unfortunate that this has been the trend we've seen over the past year with respect to anti-Asian violence, and a lot of it stemming from the rhetoric that we've seen related to the coronavirus, said John C. Yang, the president and executive director of the civil rights organization Asian Americans Advancing Justice. That rhetoric started with the former President Donald Trump, who repeatedly referred to the illness as China virus. Okay, ABC. Let's go to ABC. ABC. While police say the motives for the attacks, which include robbery and people being assaulted, is unclear. It comes amid continued concern about anti-Asian and anti-Chinese sentiment surrounding the coronavirus pandemic and its origins in Wuhan, China. Since the beginning of the pandemic, Asian American communities have been targeted and on guard for hate. Critics say former President Donald Trump helped fuel the hate towards China and Chinese Americans over the issue since the beginning of the pandemic, often derisively referring to the coronavirus as the China virus or Kung flu, and continuously blaming China for the pandemic. President Joe Biden has since signed an executive order directing federal agencies to combat coronavirus field harassment and called the attacks on the Asian American community unacceptable, but still the violence has not stopped. Okay. All right. Washington Post. Last one, guys. Washington Post. COVID-fueled anti-racism. Now elderly Asian Americans are being attacked. Asian Americans have increasingly been targeted since the start of the pandemic. Former President Donald Trump inaccurately called the coronavirus the China virus and blamed the country for the pandemic. The first known coronavirus outbreak was in Wuhan, China, but scientists are still trying to discover the virus's origin. All right. Okay, guys, so look, I just read you from 3 prominent mainstream media outlets excerpts about what's happening. I just read you some excerpts. Now, what do you think? What do you hear, or what do you see that all these articles have in common? I need my Asian American community here to do just a little bit critical thinking. All right, just a little bit, guys. What do all these articles have in common? Okay, my fellow Asian American brothers and sisters, man, we really need to think what's going on here. Okay, we really need to think what is really going on with the mainstream media's journalism, right? If you want to call it that, right? What kind of narrative are they trying to spin here? What are they trying to say here? Okay, so if you haven't figured it out by now, the idea, right, or the narrative or the big picture that mainstream media is trying to paint, violent crimes against our elderly is due to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the problem. Donald Trump is the problem, guys. It's because of Donald Trump that you see, Vicha get murdered, that you see Asian elderly women get robbed. It's because of Donald Trump, okay? Because Donald Trump somehow inspired these young black men, inspired the youth of the black community to go out there and harass, assault, rob, murder. Is anyone... You guys see where I'm going with this, right? You guys have to see where I'm going with this, okay? Now I get it. Okay, so now I get it. Now I get it. I see why mainstream media is finally giving coverage. It makes sense now, okay? Because I'm not gonna lie, initially I was a little shocked, right? And I was excited and shocked, like, wow, we're getting some coverage. This is good. But as I read all these articles, every single one of these articles had a main theme in common. Blame Donald Trump, right? Blame Donald Trump. And listen, don't get me wrong, okay? Let me unpack this a little bit. The China virus term did not help, okay? The China virus terminology or Kung flu that ex-President Donald Trump used did not help the already brewing terrible situation. All right, so let me explain first of all, where did this China virus term come from? Nobody has been very honest about this. So if you're like me, right, and back in last year, April and May, and you've been watching the news daily and following what the hell is going on with the world, with the coronavirus, there was, and there still is, but there was a lot of back and forth, right, between China and America. Where did the virus come from? Where did the virus come from? Where did it originate? It was heating up, right? Because obviously China wasn't being so transparent. Everybody who had a brain knew it came from Wuhan, China. China is saying it, no, it didn't. And they even went as far as to blame the United States, saying that no, it was actually some sort of, it was the US military that brought the virus to China. Okay? The CCP said that the US military brought the virus to China. So that broke out. And Donald Trump, of course, heard that news. And the very next day, when China said it, the very next day, he went on to do one of his press briefings. And on his notes where it said coronavirus, he crossed that out and he wrote China virus. So if you want to know why all of a sudden Donald Trump went from saying the coronavirus to the China virus, okay, it wasn't because all of a sudden he woke up and said, I want to be really racist towards Chinese people, you know, I just want to be a racist. No, that's not where it came from. It came as a response, okay, to Chinese government blaming the US for the origination of the coronavirus. Right? It was a response. Now, do I agree with how he did it? Do I agree with how he handled the situation? Of course not. Nobody does. Okay? When Donald Trump called the coronavirus the China virus as a response to China blaming the US for the origin of the virus, that was a dumb fucking move. Okay? And it was even worse because he did not try to. He did a little bit, but for the most part, he didn't clarify what he meant, okay? If you're going to go out there and you're going to cross out coronavirus, you're going to give a press briefing, okay, a briefing, so all of United States citizens can see what you're saying. You're going to cross out coronavirus and you're going to write the China virus. You better explain to the American people why you're doing that, right? If he came out and said, listen, guys, China is blaming us for the origin of this pandemic. And we're not having that, okay? And we're going to call this coronavirus the CCP virus or the China virus, whatever. We're going to call it that, but make no mistake, it is not because we're blaming Chinese citizens in China or Chinese Americans in the United States. It's because we're coining this term, the China virus or the CCP virus, because the Chinese government blamed us and they're covering up the situation. So in retaliation, in a petty tit for tat, this is what I'm going to do. So if he unpacked it a little bit further, the blow would have been better. The blow would have been softer on our community. Now, at the end of the day, I don't condone that word, right? I don't condone that phrase, right? I would much rather people say the CCP virus because that's what it is, right? The Chinese government, they covered it up, and here we are. Okay, so call it the CCP virus. When you call it the China virus and you give no context, then you have this whole shit storm that we have right now. So, guys. Again, know what happened, okay? You have to understand what's going on, right? With mainstream media. Now, the mainstream media never reported that, right? The mainstream media never said, oh, Trump all of a sudden called it the Chinese virus or the China virus out of retaliation or out of, in defense of China blaming it on the US. Of course, they knew at the time because they're news people. They watch the news more than I do. Of course, they know what's going on, but they dishonestly portrayed, dishonestly painted and twisted the intent of the term China virus. Okay. Now, again, I don't condone the term. All right. Because as soon as he said that, I remember that news briefing. I remember when he said that. And I remember saying to myself, holy shit, I saw that live and I said, holy shit, he just called it the China virus. As much as I agree with that it came from China and China, it should be held responsible, I know this is going to be devastating for actual Asian Americans because let's face it, guys, the Americans can be dumb. All right. Americans can be dumb. And when the president says things like the Chinese virus or the China virus, you're going to have Americans who believe that every yellow-faced motherfucker in the United States carries corona and is responsible for the virus, therefore dehumanizing them, therefore making it more okay to assault, harass, what have you. Okay, I get it. All right, is Donald Trump responsible for heating up the already terrible situation with Asians being assaulted? Yes, he is absolutely responsible for that. He hasn't really backtracked, or he hasn't really apologized. He's tried to clarify a little bit, but it was weak. Okay, guys, it was weak. So back to the point. The mainstream media, guys, they finally found a way. They found a way to cover the story of Asian elderly being attacked in a way how they want to spin it. They found an angle. We're going to use this to bring down the ex-president. Okay? The impeachment hearings are going on. Obviously, that shit ain't going to go through. Big waste of fucking time. You know it. I know it. Your mothers know it. But but the Senate still, the House and the Senate still have a fucking dildo up their asses, really wanted to get this impeachment thing going through when they know it's not going to happen. When they know it's just a fucking tail and pony show. Right? So the media, of course they're playing along, right? Of course they're playing along. The media, they really, if you've been reading the news about impeachment throughout last week, it really sounded like Donald Trump is done for, right? It really, because that's how they paint things. They're still so butthurt that Donald Trump was president for 4 years and said all the things he said and did all the things that he did. Even after that he's not president, they're still attacking him, right? So they use these stories. The point is they use these stories about Asian elderly being assaulted and blame it on Donald Trump. As if like Asian Americans were never assaulted in the past, but all of a sudden now we're assaulted because of the Chinese virus rhetoric. Come on, son. Can we be a little honest here? Can we be a little fucking honest here? Like, are you guys finally understanding when people say the mainstream media is full of shit? The mainstream media, is corrupt. New York Times has an issue. CNN has an issue. That their so-called objective journalism is just full of bullshit. Like, do you guys see this? Okay. I mean, I just told you what mainstream media, how they're spinning and how they're reporting these stories. Okay. And if you've been following what's going on with these violent attacks, you know right away that yes, Donald Trump and his rhetoric made the climate worse, but on these specific attacks against the elderly, come on, guys. It's not because of Donald Trump. It's not because of Donald Trump. Okay, where is the mention of racial tension between the Asian community and the black community? Okay, you got it. Where's that? There's absolutely zero mention of that. Okay, the media, they get it so wrong. They get it so wrong, and they do it on purpose, and it's so dishonest. And they're using our stories, right? Our plights. Okay? They're using our plights, the Asian American plights, to bring more scorn and more blame to the boogeyman. All right? The orange man bad, Donald Trump. This ain't it, fam. This ain't it. I don't know what else to tell you. This ain't it, okay? This is not the media coverage that we've been asking for. Okay? Maybe some of you are okay with it. Maybe some of you are satisfied with it, but I'm not. Right? Absolutely not. Okay, this kind of dishonest media reporting, I'd rather them not report at all if they're going to report garbage like this. Okay, I'd rather them not report that just completely ignore the story, because them using the stories of what's happening has turned into just another political theater, another political move to just blame Donald Trump. Guys, if you don't see a problem with this, then I'm asking you guys to wake up a little bit. It doesn't take a genius to see what's going on. Okay, I ask you to put on your Asian thinking hats. Okay, some critical thinking here. Read the news. See how the media is portraying what's happening and who they're blaming. And why are they reporting it in the way that they are? Okay, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. For me, I gave a little benefit of the doubt, right? When mainstream media started reporting it, I gave a little bit benefit of the doubt. They'll do the right thing. But nah, fam, that didn't work out. It didn't work out. So listen, we asked for mainstream media coverage. That's what we got. Okay, that's what we got. Look, I'm gonna try to break down something that's a little bit heavy. Okay, it's a little bit heavy, and it has to do with us, right? So I'm assuming if you're listening, chances are you are Asian American, and if you've been on social media, if you've been reading what some prominent figures on social media are saying, and again, this is more like a part 2 of last week, is this this reactionary calling out of anti-Blackness. Okay, so we're gonna unpack that, guys. I'm gonna do my best, and let's get to it. Okay, let's speak about anti-Blackness within the Asian American community. Okay, so I'm gonna be speaking on this issue, and I'm gonna try to unpack it and explain it to you the way that most others have not. Okay, so I'm gonna be really honest here. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to be really honest. All right, I'm going to say some shit. Okay, look, trigger warning, right? Cringe warning. Look, hide your wife, hide your kids, okay? Because I'm not going to mince words here. All right, first of all, let's talk about anti-Blackness, guys. Look, this is the question that we have to really ask ourselves. Is there an anti-Black sentiment within the Asian community? Okay, is it there? Is that a real thing? And the answer is absolutely. Okay, abso-fucking-lutely. All right. Now it's usually more within the first generation immigrants, right? Our parents' generation, grandparents' generation. But look, I'm not gonna fuck with you, right? But it's also very alive within millennials. All right, let's not get twisted, folks. Anti-Blackness is still very, very alive and well, and we don't like to talk about it, especially in today's climate. Okay, especially in today's climate, we don't want to, the Asian American community. We're not trying to look bad here in front of Black people, right? We're not, you don't want to do that. You don't want to unearth things that may piss off BLM. Okay, so we're everybody's tiptoeing, but look. If you wanted to have a very tiptoeing, speak nice, say nice words kind of podcast, you wouldn't be here. Okay, I give it to you as is. So let's talk about it. So in order for me to really talk about anti-Blackness within Asian American community, you have to go to where it originated from, right? Where did it all start? So I'm gonna give a quick history recap. Stick with me, guys, okay? Because you got to know your history. You want to have these conversations. You want to kind of figure out what you're thinking, and you want to, hash those things out. You have to know where it came from, okay? Instead of reading things that just fuel a certain narrative, instead of looking at just Instagram posts and pictures and feel good terms, you got to really know the history. So I'm gonna try to be as brief as I can, while not trying to skip over some important details. So here we go. Asian Americans, right? We started immigrating in the U.S. post 1965. Okay, guys, 1965, right? That's after the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Basically, that act made it easier for Asians, East Asians, South America, Latinos to immigrate to the U.S., right? So it made immigration just a lot easier. Open the books. America opened their books, right? Many Asian immigrants made their homes where? Typically Los Angeles, New York City, the big cities, right? Chicago. And, you got to understand, why did they leave, right? So, I can't speak for every people of color and their cultures and their reasonings, but for the large majority, Asian immigrants, they left their homes, they left their countries in search of a better life. Very simple, okay? They're coming from countries where It's war torn, political turmoil. You got poverty. You got all sorts of shit that's going on, right? So they're trying to leave that life, right? They're trying to leave that home, and it's not easy to leave your home. It's not easy to pack your bags and just say, "Fuck this, I'm out, go to America," right? The decision was difficult for many, 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 many Asian immigrants, but they still did so because they knew that in America that they would have some sort of peace, okay? That they would have some sort of freedom, right? The American dream, and that's why you saw massive, massive hundreds of thousands starting from 1965 immigrating to the United States. So the next question we have to ask is, well, how did they survive, right? How did Asian Americans survive and prosper in the United States, right? Well, guess what, guys? There is no secret magic answer to this, okay? They worked all the 3D jobs, okay? They stayed within their communities, right? So they were always kind of within themselves. They worked all the dirty fucking jobs you can think of. They saved money, all right? They saved money. This is key. They saved money. They kept a low profile, and they endured all sorts of racism and bullshit and harassment and hate, but they continued to work hard. They didn't bitch. They didn't complain. I mean, there was a little bit bitching here and there. You can't blame that. But, even with crazy setbacks, they still kept going forward, kept saving money, kept working, right? Year after year after year. So now, few years go by, some Asian Americans, they save enough money. Okay, so they save enough money and they start these little small businesses, typically within their communities, right? But also within communities of lower income, because where else are they gonna go, right? So look, so they start businesses, and you all know what kind of businesses they start, right? You got liquor stores, delis, small supermarkets, grocery stores, beauty supply, laundromats, nail salons, restaurants, you name it, small business, okay? Everything that a lot of businesses, not all the businesses, but a lot of businesses that when the Jewish community first came and what they started, the Asian community kind of took over those types of small businesses. Not all of them, but a lot of the common ones that I just named. Okay, so like I said, they lived closely within their communities, right? Asian Americans, they're in their bubbles, right? Whether it's in New York City or whether it's in Los Angeles, they're all kind of within themselves. Okay, so you have that. And like I said before, businesses were also sprung up in lower income neighborhoods. And when I mean lower income neighborhoods, let's be very specific here. We're talking about predominantly black neighborhoods, okay? Predominantly black communities. You've had some business owners who saved up money, and not a lot of money, right? Maybe 50 grand, 30 grand, 20 grand. We're not talking about a lot of money, folks. They save this up. Where are you going to start your business? They go to these low-income communities. Now, you got to ask the question. Okay, this is the big question we have to ask. Why would Asian Americans set up shop in these neighborhoods? Okay, again, Asian American community, put your little critical thinking hat on, all right? Why would Asian Americans set up shop in these neighborhoods, all right? Did Asian Americans, did they come together, some collective conclusion and say, hey, let's suck at the wealth out of the black neighborhood. Let's suck the wealth out of these low-income neighborhoods. That's not how it happened, fam. That's not how it happened, okay? Let me tell you why, and it's not a big secret, okay? You just have to think a little bit. The answer is there was no other choice. There was no other choice. You have these immigrant groups. They have to start, they have to move up in society, right? They can't be working 3D jobs forever, so they start businesses, right? With the little money that they have. They're not going to join corporate America. They can barely speak English. They have no degrees that America recognizes. There is no education behind them. It's just hard work, hard work ethics, and some money saved up. So what are you going to do? You start small businesses, okay? There's only so many small businesses you can set up within your community. You got to go outward. And if you want to set up shop in the rich neighborhoods, well, it costs a lot more money, okay? Now, some Asian Americans absolutely did set up shop in richer neighborhoods, okay, in the city. But for the most part, in the beginning, initially, okay, you have to set up shop in the lower income neighborhoods, okay, because they didn't have a choice, okay? You got to go where there's a possibility. Okay, so moving forward, Asian Americans they start businesses, right? Lower income neighborhoods, predominantly black. Okay, predominantly black, and when you start businesses in these neighborhoods, you're an outsider, right? You're an Asian American. You go to a neighborhood that's mostly Hispanic or mostly black. What do you think is going to happen? Okay, I did say these are low income neighborhoods. What do you think is going to happen? Okay, what do you think is going to happen when you put small business owners who don't look anything like the people in the neighborhood and you put them there, you set up shop? Again, guys, put your thinking hats on. What do you think is going to happen? Is there going to be robbery, assault, violence? Of course. Of course. Is there going to be tension? Of course. Look, there's language barrier. Okay, there is this idea that, they see, oh, look at these Asians coming in here, setting up shop, and they just do their thing, and then they just pack up their bags and go home every night to their own little communities. Fuck's that about, huh? What's that about? Look, don't get me wrong. There are some business owners. There were some business owners that were very involved within whatever community they set up shop in. Not all Asian Americans just been like, hey, I'm gonna go to let's just say Harlem, and I'm gonna open up a liquor store, and I'm just gonna suck the dollar out of everyone there, and I'm just gonna leave, and I'm not gonna know anyone's name. I'm not gonna be involved whatsoever. Look, there were definitely people who were very involved in the community. I'm not gonna knock all Asian business owners saying that they weren't, but for the most part, I'm gonna assume for the most part, nah, they probably weren't. All right, they probably weren't. All right, so when you have this situation, okay, the situation is you have these new wave of immigrants, Asian Americans, save up some money and they set up shop in these neighborhoods where nobody else wants to set up shop, okay? Nobody else wants to set up shop in these neighborhoods, but they do it. And now you have some, you got a little tussling, a little bit of tension rising, right? Because you have generally speaking, when you have low-income neighborhoods, there is poverty. There is poverty, which poverty kind of equates to higher crime rates, right? These go hand in hand. Doesn't matter if black, white, Asian. That's a universal thing. Okay, it's human nature. So Asians opening up shops in these neighborhoods, all of a sudden they become easy targets. Okay, you see, they just, because they look different. Okay, these Asians, they don't even communicate with us. What do you think is going to happen, guys? All right. On top of that, right, now you have some more petty criminal minds here that they start taking advantage, right? They go to, this was a big issue in, like, let's say in the 90s in New York City. You've had a lot of people, many of them were black. Okay, many of them were black. They would come into New York City delis. They would come into New York City groceries, whatever. And, Asian American owned business, they would slip on purpose and they would smash their head on some cupboard or on some shelf, and they would be bleeding on the floor. Okay, what do you think that person is going to do? That person is going to try to sue the business, right? Because of, this was unsafe and they slipped and they fell and their head is gashing with blood. Were there those kinds of issues within these small businesses? You bet. Okay, so now, what do you think that these small business owners are thinking? Okay, what do you think these small business owners that came to America, worked really hard, 10, 20 years and set up, had some amount of savings, set up shop, and they come into these neighborhoods and all this shit's happening, right? They're getting assaulted, they're getting robbed, there's violence, sometimes they're getting sued. What do you think they're thinking now? To be honest, they're probably thinking, wow, these fucking people, man. These fucking people, right? And when I say these fucking people, you got to insert whatever racial black slur to the respective Asian countries, right? They probably think we come here, we set up shop. Okay, we set up small businesses and we try to provide goods and we try to provide services and they attack us? Motherfuckers, man. Like, like there was definitely that sentiment. So now you have this growing sentiment, right? Like, we're just trying to make it out here, Asian Americans, and honestly, they probably thought we don't want to go into black neighborhoods, but where else are we gonna go? We're not going to be invited to the rich white neighborhoods because we don't got the money for that kind of business. So we gotta do it here. We gotta try to live in harmony with the community here. But they're being attacked. They're being harassed. So now, what do you think the black community is thinking, right? During these times where they see all these Asian owners pop up with their little small businesses. Wow, these people, man, these fucking people. Okay, these fucking people, they set up shop, right? They suck up our wealth, right? They take our money and they go back home to their little cushy communities, right? Is that a justified sentiment, way of thinking from the black community's perspective? I would say, yeah, why not? Why not, right? I mean, if you're part of that community, you're in a low income community, and you see a bunch of Asian shops popping up, right? Whether it's beauty supply, liquor stores, whatever have you, and you don't really know them. They don't really speak. They can't communicate well with you, and they're just there, and you buy goods, you buy stuff from them, and then they just leave, right? It's not a great feeling, all right? It's not like what are these? It looks like they're just exploiting us. You got to understand, it's two ways, right? There's no communication, mistrust grows, racial tensions rises. Okay, so now you have the business, Asian business shop owners, right? Now you got the shop owners just staring at black people when they come to the store, right? I mean, you guys know that you've seen those movies and shows where you see like the Asian business owner on the deli. They're just staring at the black person coming in, right? Oh, they're just staring at them. They have a gun. They have a gun below the counter, ready to blast, right? In case shit gets wild. They're just ready, right? They're constantly eyeballing, giving nasty looks to the customer base, which happens to be predominantly black, and and that's because out of just constant mistrust and miscommunication is building up. It's just building up. The black community, they're not stupid. They're not fucking stupid, right? They see what's going on. They feel the eyeballing. They feel the racial profiling here, right? They feel the shop owners watching them as they, go maybe try to, pick up some items here and there, make sure that they're not trying to steal. They feel that. Guys, it's building up, right? You have Asian shop owners, building, having more distrust, and you have the black community, feeling like now they're being targeted. Okay, so I mean, this is and guys, I'm not making these things up. Okay, these are very true stories. Okay, many of you know from your parents, or maybe you worked in one of these shops. These are very real feelings. Okay, we're talking about minority, racial tensions. These things, it's a real thing. All right, and I'm gonna tell you a quick story about my father in the early '80s. In the early '80s, my father was in LA and he used to work in a liquor store in Compton. Okay, and in the liquor store in Compton, he would work there as a cashier. They would have 3 cashiers, and they would have 2 kind of watch guards, right? It's these 2 guys, young kids. They were young. My father was maybe late 20s at the time. Kids that were like 22, 21. They would sit at the top of the liquor store, right? The corners of the liquor store. They would be holding automatic rifles inside the liquor store, just for security purposes, right? Oh, everybody wore bulletproof vests, right? That was just common. Okay, this is Compton, right? Early '80s Compton. Everybody wore bulletproof vests, right? They all had what is it called, like a 9mm handgun, just ready, right? And my dad was a cashier at the time, right? He was just there, and that was his part-time job while he was studying for his broker licenses. So, when he was there, you got to understand how they conducted business with the community in Compton, right? You would see these half drunk, half maybe high people come in, and they would buy like cheap ass wine or beer, and let's just say let's just say it'll be 50 cents, right? And after tax, it'll be like 55 cents. So they're trying to buy one beer. It's like 50 cents or 55 cents. And the customer, he gives $1, right? He gives $1 to my dad, and my dad takes the dollar, puts the dollar in the cash register, and he has all these little coin buckets, and he picks up a couple of pennies, he picks up a couple of dimes, maybe a nickel or two, gives the change, right? Obviously, he's shortchanging, right? He's shorting every transaction. And a lot of the customers would just take the change and go. Some customers would look at the change and be like, "Are you sure this is right, man? Are you sure? I feel like you're shortchanging me." And what would happen is they would try to count the change in front of my dad in front of the counter. But a lot of the community members that would buy liquor or beer or whatever at the liquor store, they weren't that great at math. They just weren't that great at math. So they would be counting, and it would take a long time, and the cashiers and my dad would kick them out. Be like, hey, motherfucker, count outside. Okay, don't count here. Okay, the change is there. Count outside, all right, or get lost, right? So they would kick them out. And the truth of the situation was the person getting the change, let's say he got back $1.32, but he was supposed to get back $1.82, okay? You were not able to take out your pocket change and count that shit outside, because if you did, some other motherfucker outside was going to probably jack your ass, okay? I mean, this was happening just in front of the liquor store, all right? Everyone knew that, right? So it's almost as if this liquor store business had this is like a business plan, this business setup where, look, no one's going to count change in front of the counter, and no one's and they're not going to count the change outside the counter because they know how dangerous that is, right? Pulling out cash in front of, in the open, no one's going to do that. So that's just a little story of my father working in the liquor store in the early 80s, and you can just tell, right? You can tell there's the sort of tensions, right? I mean, even as they would close shop, right? When the liquor store would, at the end of the day, they lock up, get the cash, and the way that they would go home is even crazier, right? Because what they would do is they have 3 cars, okay? And every night when they go home, the money, right, where they put all the money in the bag, in a certain bag, and every night they would change where the money bag is. They would alternate between the 3 cars. So one night, let's say my dad would take it home. One night the owner would take it home. One night a young kid Danny with the AK-47 on the rooftop would take it home. They would, and that's how they did. And when they go home, they don't just go home all willy-nilly, right? They drive together, right? They drive together and they drop one person off together. Then they drive the next person off, and then the final person goes home, right? I mean, this is the kind of environment that you've had Asian Americans and the Black community living under. Okay, that's the kind of tension. We're talking about real fucking tension, folks. Okay, not just some petty beef. I mean, this is years of building up, right? Now let's fast forward to 1991. Fast forward 1991, Los Angeles. You have March 3rd, 1991. Rodney King gets beamed down, right? You all know this. Rodney King gets beamed down by white cops, and it's been videotaped. Holy shit, it's been videotaped, and guess what? The videotape gets out, right? Millions of Americans see it. Black community, fucking furious. March 16, you have March 16, 1991. Okay, about 13 days after Rodney King's beating, you have Sunja Du, okay, Miss Du. She shoots a 15-year-old black girl because she thought that the young lady was stealing orange juice. They get into a verbal, physical spat, and out of anger, Sunja shoots Latasha Harlins in the back of her head. Kills Latasha, right? The 15-year-old black girl. Kills her. Obviously, this didn't sit well with the Black community, right? They just went through Rodney King. Now they have a deli store clerk. Maybe she was the owner or clerk. Who knows? She decides to shoot a young girl for accusing her of stealing orange juice. November 15, 1991. Jury found that Du's decision to fire the gun was fully within her control and that she fired the gun voluntarily. The jury found Du guilty of voluntary manslaughter, an offense that carries a maximum prison sentence of 16 years. The jury recommends the maximum sentence for Du. However, the trial judge, Joyce Carlin, did not accept the jury's sentencing recommendation and instead sentenced Du to 5 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and a $500 fine. Oh boy. Tension building, boys, right? Tension is building. Clearly justice was not served here, okay? Black community absolutely enraged at the time, right? 1991, okay, 1991. We got Rodney King beatings, videotaped. You got Latasha Harlins, pretty much executed. And now you have the killer sentenced to 5 years probation, right? 5 years probation. Look, Miss Sunja Du, okay, she should have received the full 16 years of prison sentence. And even then, it would be controversial to say if justice was really served, right? Look, I don't care how many times black people stole from her or called her racial slurs, or I don't care what kind of history of violence she experienced from the black community, okay? I don't care, right? If you kill someone over the assumption of stolen orange juice, that's a crime, okay? Killing someone is a crime, and crimes need to be punished, folks. Crimes need to be punished to the full extent of the law. You need to go to fucking jail for a long-ass time, period. Okay? That's it. Obviously, this didn't happen with Sunja Du. Okay, this didn't happen. Look, she was Korean American, and as a Korean American, I can kind of understand that situation, right? I saw the videotape, the tense situation. Look, she assumed that she was stealing orange juice, but she was actually going to pay. Sunja grabs her book bag and then Latasha's book bag, and Latasha felt threatened and then started punching Sunja in the face. And as soon as Latasha turned around, Sunja got really pissed, took out the handgun, and boom, one shot, headshot to the back of her head. She falls right away, dies instantly. Right? I get it. I get why, that kind of Korean rage, right? Man, listen, Korean women. Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, Korean women, they can be very, very, very passionate. Okay, they can be very, very passionate. And let's just, if you want to say it nicely, okay, out of passion, out of that rage, she did an awful thing. Nonetheless, no excuse. Should have gotten 16 years or more, but instead got 5 years of probation and some petty fines. Bullshit, right? Bullshit. So you have this again building up right now. The black community just frustrated, building up. You have Latasha Harlins killing by Asian shop owner, Korean shop owner, building up. April 29, 1992. Fast forward about a year, the jury acquits 3 officers. Okay, 3 officers out of the 4 that beats Rodney King, and then within hours of the acquittal, all hell breaks loose, right? Los Angeles rioting, just madness. Most of the brunt of the damage of the riots they were done in Koreatown, right? In Koreatown, Los Angeles. Now, I'm not going to go through the rioting details, the LA riots, 92 riots in details. I'm just going to give some key takeaways here, right? One, rioters, they targeted Koreatown. Okay, they absolutely targeted Koreatown. And the reason, look, I'm gonna assume a lot of it had to be it was just opportunism, right? Petty crime, opportunism, right? There was no cops. Okay, you see rioting and you see shops being broken in, and cops, they're not there. Or if they're there, they're just watching. They're not doing anything. That and a little bit of bad blood, right? The communities, listen, they weren't exactly buddies. Okay, so now maybe some people within the black community, they felt sort of emboldened or empowered to commit acts of violence, right? Or they're like, oh, I'm going to get these motherfuckers back, right? The brown and black community, really, maybe there was some of that, right, against the Korean shop owners. So yeah, number 2, police didn't come to help. The police, like I said, the police didn't come to help. But why? You have to understand, why didn't the police come to help the Korean shop owners? Okay? It's not that hard to understand. Look, riots were happening all over Los Angeles, right? And where do you think the police is going to go? Okay, and this is still a problem today, but let me tell you, Asian Americans didn't have priority back then, and they still don't have priority today. Okay? When there were potentially, more upper class neighborhoods where rioting can enter, the police had to be there, right? They had to stop that. So all the focus was protecting the richer neighborhoods, the more wider neighborhoods. Makes sense, okay? And not surprised. And whether it's that and short of manpower, or the police commissioner at the time, just didn't want to help out the Koreatown area. There was a lot of things. Okay, there was a lot of things here and there. But at the end of the day, the police didn't come. Okay, some key takeaways: the police didn't come. Number 3, small business owners. Look, they had to come up. They had to find a way to defend themselves. Police aren't here, right? The institutions have failed the Korean American community, right? They're being targeted. They're being shot at. They're getting looted. Businesses destroyed. Years and decades of hard work going up in flames. What do you think they're gonna do? Okay, well, they're gonna defend themselves. Okay, so they're gonna get their shotguns. They're gonna get their rifles or semi-automatic rifles, pistols, handguns, and they're gonna defend their property. They're gonna defend their business. I know a lot of liberal Asians hated that, right? They hated to see guns being pointed at black and brown people. But guess what? That's the situation that you have. Okay, you have one community being so upset about the turn of events, right? With Rodney King, with Latasha Harlins, okay, with the sentencing of Sunja, with the sentencing of the 4 racist cops that beat Rodney, and how all that played out. You have that boiling up. You have the police that completely abandoned the Korean shop owners. Circumstances, okay? It's messy, guys. It's messy. If you wanna learn more about the LA riots, watch LA 92 on Netflix. Great documentary. It's kind of long. It's 2 hours, but if you're Asian American, you should watch it, right? You'll get a little bit more of a deeper insight. So, with all that being said, guys, look, there's history between the two communities. Okay, you have this history. If you want to talk about anti-Blackness, you have to understand the history that I just laid out. And I didn't even speak about everything, but you gotta understand the history before you say something, before whatever comes out of your mouth. Okay, if you want to talk about anti-Blackness, understand the history between the two communities. It's messy. Okay, it's messy. And look, that was 92, right? Now, so moving up in the timeline, post LA riots, you still see many black people in the community. They're still suffering from poverty. Okay? They're still suffering from the same things they've been suffering from, but it's getting even worse now. Even worse than the 70s and the 60s. Okay? Because now they're going through the crack epidemic. Okay? Cocaine was too expensive, so they found a way to smoke it through, and it's called crack. And now they're going through an insane crack epidemic, which leads to a war on drugs, right? And that war on drugs, guess what? Leads to mass incarceration of black men. Problem's getting worse, okay? Problem's getting worse. And, and what does that have? What does that do? That leads to just deeper mistrust within the criminal justice system. Okay, I think the offense of catching someone with crack was like 300 times worse than cocaine. And you're gonna have some fucking problems with the criminal justice system when you see that the drug sentencing seemed to disproportionately affect black men, the black community. Yeah, you're gonna have some fucking problems. All right, guys, if you want to learn more about that, please watch documentaries Crack. Okay, it's called Crack, and also The 13th, both on Netflix. Really good to really understand history. It's all connected, boys. It's all connected. So the same cycle ensues, right? The same things, the same cycle of hatred, of mistrust, of tensions. It builds, right, throughout the 90s, the 2000s, okay, throughout the 2010s. I don't even know what you call that decade, right? Till today, right? A recent statistic in 2018, the Bureau of Justice statistics show that Asians are 280 times more likely to experience violent crimes. Okay, 280 times more likely to experience violent crimes from the Black community than the other way around. Right? Than Asian with violent crimes against Blacks are 280 times more likely. 280 times more likely. That's a crazy number. That's an astonishing statistic. Okay, and mind you, this is pre-pandemic, pre-China virus, right? Pre-China virus rhetoric, pre-pandemic, 2018. Now, in all other races, you see that violent crimes happen mostly within their own race, right? And that's just, it makes sense, right? Due to proximity, when people get together, there's drama. I don't know what else to say, right? So that it is what it is. You see Black people who are the most violent crimes offenders against Black people. Which race? It's Black people, okay? Same thing with white people, okay? Same thing with Hispanics, okay? But with Asians, that's not true. With Asians, the majority of offenders are Blacks at 27%. Asian on Asian violence at 24%. And white on Asian violence is also at 24%. This is not it's a 3% larger than Asian on Asian violence, but it is still something to note. It's the only race of people, Asian Americans, experience a disproportionate level of violent crimes from the Black community than any other community. Okay, why is that? Why is that, right? And you have to, like I said, you have to understand the history, these racial tensions, these realities. Okay, you want to speak about anti-Blackness within Asian community? Well, you gotta see what the communities have been through. Okay, you gotta see what the communities they've been through to understand where it comes from. You have to know that Asians didn't just immigrate to the U.S. and have like this anti-Blackness embedded in them. It's in their blood. No. Look, there was decades of mistrust. Okay, there was decades of racial tensions that was boiling and boiling and boiling. You have Asians saying things like, and this anti-Black sentiment comes out, right? I mean, even today, as I was growing up, you hear it. So you hear Asians say things like, look, like Asian parents say things like, look, don't bring a Black woman home. Don't bring a Black man home. Okay, Black people are lazy. Black people are animals. Black people are criminals. You hear these things, these stereotypical comments, racial comments from the Asian community. But I want to let you know that, guys, it didn't come out of nowhere. Okay, those comments absolutely misguided. Those comments absolutely deserve to be challenged and not perpetuated, right? Because when you say those things, when you say things like they're lazy, animals, criminals, you're dehumanizing the Black community, right? And when you dehumanize a certain community, or when you dehumanize a person, a human being, that's when it's easier to racially target. That's when it's easier to harass or violate or a murder, right? So again, decades, right? Decades of mistrust and issues. Now look, I'm not gonna say it was all bad, right? Look, there have been Asian and Black coalitions, alliances, movements. It's not, and I'm not gonna go through all of them. Some of them were kind of founded on socialism and communism. I don't agree with those movements, obviously, but regardless, they were still coalitions, right? Where you see Asian community and the Black community get together, right? And I believe, I believe that the majority of Asians don't hold that kind of resentment towards Blacks. And when we hear those stereotypes, when we hear those stereotypes, do they need to be challenged? They need to be broken? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But before you go about to your parents, or before you go about to other Asian Americans and addressing their anti-Blackness and addressing the racial comments that they made, just understand what kind of history that they may have had towards towards the Black community. Okay, because if I see a Black person come up to me and say, "Man, fuck Asians," because they just, they whatever, they can say whether they appropriate our culture, and when I go to an Asian store, they eyeball me, and I feel violated, and they always call the cops on me, and if they say that to me, right, and they say all these kinds of racial slurs about Asians, I'm not gonna be so quick. I'm not gonna be so quick to condemn them. Okay, because that person's reality, or certain individuals within the Black community, their reality is that they've experienced they only have negative experiences from the Asian American community. And there are certain individuals within the Asian American community that have only negative experiences towards the Black community. Okay? And yes, you can challenge, but if you challenge these things, I want to tell you guys, do it in a loving way. Do it in a way where you're not trying to condemn, but you're trying to uplift. Okay, you're trying to show love, show grace, and trying to get to a place where, look, we as an Asian American community, we have to be together. We have to work together to build better coalitions and to build a better sense of trust, a better sense of solidarity between communities. In order for you to do that, you can't be just shitting on everybody that disagrees with you. You can't be shitting on everybody that has anti-Black sentiment, because it's true. Yes, there is anti-Black sentiment within the Asian American community. But if you just listen to the little history lesson that I gave you all, you can kind of understand where it comes from. Understanding where it comes from doesn't mean you're condoning it. Don't get me wrong. Understanding where anti-Black sentiment comes from doesn't mean you're saying you're okay with it, right? But in order for you to progress with people that have anti-Black sentiment, with Asians that have that, in order for you to build a bridge, to sort of understand each other, you have to be the one that has to understand what that other person went through or why they think that way, instead of just straight up condemning, right? Instead of straight up just saying, hey, you're highlighting Asian Americans being assaulted. Guess what? You're being anti-Black, and you got to stop that. Okay, if that's, again, I said this before, if that's your first response, you got to check yourself, because you're part of the problem. Okay, you're part of the problem. All right, I'm going pretty long here, and I really wanted to speak on white supremacy, but I feel like this will take just way too much time. So I'm going to say just a little bit about white supremacy. Okay, white supremacy. Okay, this is a buzzword the liberal left love using. Blame everything on white supremacy. It's because of white supremacy that the Black community is facing poverty. It's because of white supremacy that there's racial tensions. Because of white supremacy. Guys, stop fucking saying that. Okay, let me read you the definition of white supremacy is. Okay, this is what white supremacy is: the belief that white people constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate society, typically to the exclusion or detriment of other racial and ethnic groups, particularly Black or Jewish people. All right, that's from the Oxford Dictionary. Anything else that, any other definitions or any other add-ons that you want to put on, that's not white supremacy. You can call that something else, okay? Call it systematic racism, call it whatever you want. We can talk about that next time. But the definition of white supremacy is what I just read, okay? It's the belief that white people, they think they're superior, right? They think that they're superior and they have to hold their superiority, okay? They have to dominate society and they have to exclude other races and other ethnicities, especially, and particularly the black and Jewish people. That is real white supremacy. Okay? So understand that. Now, when you see, man, my liberal left-leaning friends, man, when you call everything just white supremacy, I just wanna highlight how silly you sound. Okay, I wanna highlight how silly you sound. First of all, white supremacy is not a mainstream idea in modern America. Okay, so when you throw around that term so willy-nilly, it makes actual white supremacists a little bit harder to detect. Okay, because since everything is white supremacy, what about the real white supremacists out there? Okay, it's an abuse of the term white supremacy. It wasn't because of white supremacy that Asians set up shop in poor black neighborhoods. It wasn't because of white supremacy that Sun Ja-do shot Latasha Harlins. It wasn't because of white supremacy that Korean business owners used guns to protect their communities. It wasn't because of white supremacy that there are existing tensions, right, between the Asian and black communities. And it wasn't because of white supremacy that black youths decided to target the Asian elderly. Okay, look, at the end of the day, you can try to go through insane mental gymnastics to justify criminals, to justify acts of violence, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt that you have a good heart, and you're trying to see things in a better light. But look, the truth of the reality, the truth of the matter is, when you commit crimes, your circumstance does not matter. Okay? When you commit crimes, there's punishment. There's got to be accountability. Your ass is going to go to fucking jail. Okay? When you assault Asian elderly, whether you kill them, rob them, whatever it is, if you get caught, which you should, you're going to go to jail. Okay, that is the justice that we know that lives in America. Okay? When Latasha Harlins was basically assassinated by Sun Ja-do, Sun Ja should have received a harsher sentence than whatever community service and some bullshit that she got. Okay? Okay? Justice wasn't served there. She should have received it. She should have received a harsher sentence. There is no excuse. There is no excuse. You can't blame everything on white supremacy and be like, oh, well, you know what? It's because of white supremacy that there's these violent crimes, these petty, opportunistic criminals that commit these crimes. So therefore, what? Are you going to excuse these crimes? Okay, don't come at me with that transformative justice nonsense, because transformative justice says there's got to be accountability, but they don't exactly tell me what this accountability is. All right, transformative justice says, oh, there's going to be both parties of the offendee meeting together in the communities, and we want to heal and make that person whole, both the offended and the offendee. That all sounds great. It all sounds great. It really does. Okay, but at the end of the day, where is the accountability? Accountability in America, when you commit crime, is you go to fucking jail. Okay? If that's not accountability, then, and you want to change that, that means you're changing America in its whole. The whole criminal justice system, the whole idea, right? You don't just want to reform, you want to change it into something that's completely different, where violent crimes aren't being punished, but you're trying to restore that person. Look, America, the criminal justice system isn't Jesus. You want to talk about restoration? You want to talk about bringing people whole? Only Jesus can do that. All right, only Jesus can do that. All right, no system that you make, that you can call it whatever you want, transformative justice. What is the other one? Restorative justice. There's all these. Look, none of that works. The idea, I get it. The idea behind it is good. Right? The intent behind it is good. But in reality, it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. It's not going to work. All right? How can you tell the person who lost their grandfather or their grandmother, look, that person, the attacker, the assaultee, or the assaulter, I'm sorry, is that person's not gonna go to jail, because we want to make that person whole and integrate them back into the community as a normal citizen. So they're gonna go through some sort of program, and that's how we're gonna go about things. Look, maybe some families will be okay with that, but the vast majority of Americans will not be okay with that. Okay? Because what did I say before? If you commit a crime, you gotta go to jail. There's gotta be consequences. Okay? You want to talk about forgiveness. You want to talk about, making that person whole. You want to look. That's God's job. That's Jesus' job. That's not. We don't do that. We can't do that. That's not within our power to do that. Okay? Look, I've talked enough, right? I've talked more than enough about this. Man, I try to unpack the best I can, right? Where our anti-Blackness comes from, white supremacy, mainstream media. And I've talked enough about this. And in future podcasts, I will try not to speak so much about this, but I feel like in light of the events, the events that happened, I had to talk more about it. And I had to give a part 2, which is this podcast. So, guys, hopefully I open your eyes to a couple of things, right? Hopefully I open your eyes to a couple of things, and basically it's where I want the conversations to sound like, right? Where I want to see if there's going to be real change, right? Then these conversations need to be had, right? The uncomfortable history between Asian and Black communities. We need to learn that, these alliances that can be forged, stronger bonds between the two communities, that can only happen when leaders on both sides actually come together and have honest discussions. They got whatever ideas they exchange back and forth, they got to bring that back to their people. Okay? Back to their people, right? The Black community, right, needs to address to their own people, right? The leaders of the Black community needs to address to their own people about the disproportionate number of violent crimes against Asians. It can't be Asian Americans preaching to the Black community, because that just looks bad, and no one's going to listen to that. Same thing the other way around, right? You have the Black community saying, well, Asian Americans, there's deep anti-Blackness embedded in the Asian American community. Okay, I hear you, brother. So I need the Asian American community, right? Leaders speaking truthfully, honestly about it in a non-condemning way, right? Because every time Asian Americans bring it up, it just feels like, finger pointing, condemning, right? And if you're not with the program, then you're not woke and you're an ignorant fuck, and that's it, right? If you come at me like that, if you come at the community like that, most of the community completely dismisses you. Okay, most of the Asian American community will dismiss you. Look, I need Asian Americans to learn, right? I need the community to learn. It's easy when we see what's going on in the news to fall into the trap of, painting the whole Black community as criminals, right? As lower class citizens, right? That thinking pattern, it's easy to fall into it. And we can't do that, right? Because if we want to see real race relations get better, we have to know that these individuals within the Black community that assaulted our people, that they do not represent the community as a whole. We gotta learn that, right? We gotta learn that. Look, at the end of the day, the moral of the story, guys, it's very simple. The moral of the story is every Black life, right? Every Black American life, it's worth the same. It's worth the same as an Asian American life, right? And vice versa. An Asian American life, right, whether you're 90 years old or whether you're 1 year old, is worth the same as every Black American. And both communities have to really understand that. Okay, both communities have to really understand that to treat each other with respect. We got to see each other as human beings. We got to see each other as human beings. Okay. And if there are people within the community, in the respective communities that fall out of line, that violates or assaults or whatever, they need to be held accountable. Period. Okay? No restorative justice. No. They need to be held accountable. What does accountability mean in America? It means your ass needs to go to fucking jail. All right? It means your ass needs to go to fucking jail. Don't tell me that, the criminal justice system, has disproportionately affected Black America. I get it. And I 100% agree with you. Okay? And I will 100% agree with that. But when it comes to violent crimes, I'm not talking about small, you're caught with a small ounce of weed. No, I'm talking about violent crimes. Violent crimes there's got to be accountability. Okay? And if we see that the vast majority of violent crimes are coming from a certain community, then we got to be real and we got to address that certain community. Guys, I think we can do better. Right? I think there can be a place where we come together and we agree and we support each other. But in order for that to happen, we need both community leaders come together and have real honest discussions, or else it's not going to happen, right? You want to keep blaming Donald Trump? You want to keep blaming the pandemic? You want to keep blaming white supremacy? Nothing's ever going to get solved. Nothing will ever get solved, okay? We need straight talk. Okay, guys. Look, this is the Millennial Boomer Podcast. Man, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow to the podcast, and follow the Instagram page at Millennial Boomer _. Also, subscribe, like, and comment if you're watching on YouTube. Really appreciate it, guys. Catch you next time.